Well, greetings, everyone. It is Thursday night and time for the Sports Crib, home of the Sports Crib Network. Uh, have a few guests tonight. She knows football will be along with us. We're introducing another young lady tonight from the D.C. area. And I'm looking forward to having my regular suspects on tonight. Let's see, where is everybody? Let me. Of course I did, Bill. As always. Yes. 3 days ago. Uh, okay, let's see if we can. Uh, okay, there's the link to Bill. I guess I might as well send it to uh, the rest of the guys. Doesn't look like they got it either. So let's try. Uh, everyone. All right. uh, let's see. Did I miss anyone? All right, let's see if that new link goes out and what's going on here. Let's see. Okay. uh, strangely, it seems like we're having some problems tonight loading people up. So, in the meantime, some of the things we're going to talk about, everybody remembers Josh Rosen, the promising career that they had set for him. And I'm thinking about some of the guys that will be giving out a try this time. Trey Lawrence, Justin Fields. Uh, we'll see how some of these things work out. And it was very interesting because now where does Josh Rosen go from here? From supposedly the next golden child to now, let's see. Okay. Okay. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties tonight here. Did anyone get the memo? see. I see Bill is here. Let's see. Looks like Bill's the only one who got the memo. But yeah, what's going on tonight, Bill?
I don't know. I couldn't find the show link. So that
Well,
was slowing me up.
I did send it. I resent it to Demetrius, and um, She Loves Football should be here soon. I'm not sure where Don and everyone is, but hey, we'll hold down the fort till they get here, if they get here, and whenever they get here. So
There you
go. Let me start here. I guess we can start with some NBA since nobody else is here. And I know you had a chance to see or hear about the show with Draymond and KD. And supposedly, we're all good now. And, we agreed that it wasn't us, it was the front office. We should have had at least 2 or 3 more championships. To me, this sounds like one of those after the facts. I mean, you you call me a bitch and do everything but slap me and call me a child of God. I have to think that what is that? A drunk, speaks with a sober mind, or something like that. But what's your thoughts on that, Bill?
On not there.
It was the front office, or whether all is forgiven or not. Now it's kind of water under the bridge. KD's been gone. They haven't won a championship since. So that's over. That part's over with. And whether they're friends or not, hey, things happen. But do you think that it was the fault of the front office, or was it a rift between players?
The fault of the front office that they didn't win more championships?
That they broke up the team.
Oh, that part. Okay. I was like, how could that be the front office's fault? When you say broke up the team, see, when I think of a front office breaking up the team, okay, The Last Dance, right? We speak of something over our lives entirely. The Bulls had reached a point where they were not interested in keeping that team together as it was currently constructed, including Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And, no matter how you might feel about Jordan, no matter how you might feel about Krause, or no matter how you might feel about really any of those involved, right? Ownership, coaches, players, whatever. The feeling around the building at the top levels was that team has constructed and run its course. Now, the teams that we're talking about now, I don't think there was a sense that those teams had run their course. My understanding is that there were players who were interested in looking at other opportunities. I mean, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it's something I don't know. I mean, I'm not, super plugged in. I'm not, right? I'm not, Woj. I don't know every little thing that goes on in every locker room. People don't, call me or text me and tell me what they're thinking. But that doesn't seem like something that I did, unless I'm missing something.
Well, like I said, it's kind of a hindsight thing now, since KD is gone and he's moved on to other pastures, and both teams are without a ring, so it doesn't, right now it's kind of a little like water under the bridge. Embiid signed a big contract. You got any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, what do they have if they don't have him? I mean, they can't exactly afford not to pay Joel Embiid. I mean, unless they wanted to blow it up and start over. Because speaking of the front office, I mean, theoretically, they could decide to just retrust the process trust the Parcells Part 2 Electric Boogaloo or whatever. But unless you're going to do that, you have to hold on to Embiid because, as discussed many, many times, you can't build around Ben Simmons. So you have to hold on to Embiid, and you have to make sure that he's happy. And he is. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not a Joel Embiid fan, but he's a historically good big man, especially for nowadays. Look at his numbers. He's 27 and 20 or something for his career. I mean, there's a short list of dudes that are above him in career, points and rebounds averaged for a career. A short list. It's not a long list, James. It's a short list, like 7 or something dudes are ahead of him. Guys with names like Kareem, right? Wilt, Hakeem, Shaq. I mean, a long list. It's a short list of guys that have a better, like I said, in that whole career double. I think maybe David Robinson, but I think that might be about it that are ahead of him. It's a pretty short list of dudes. It's not a long list. So they have a historically great post player in an era where post play is really at its nadir, probably in the history of the game. For whatever reason, they have not decided to build their team in an old school kind of way with, a true pass first point guard who feeds your post player and some guys who cut, a Bobby Dandridge type, a Jamal Silk Wilkes type, and then, some other guys that can bang and play defense and rebound. So the team is built, and Charles Barkley has some interesting things to say about how everyone watched the Golden State Warriors, just mentioned them, and they decided to try to do what they do, but without having their players. And forgetting that if you don't have Steph Curry, if you don't have Kevin Durant, and you don't have Klay Thompson, then that kind of basketball doesn't work or isn't sustainable long term, is probably a better way to put it. If you don't have 3 of the top, let's say 10, maybe even above 10, but 3 of the top 10 pure shooters in the history of basketball. If you have 3 of the top 10 shooters in the history of basketball, that offense is going to work. Of course, a whole lot of offenses will work if you have 3 of the top 10 shooters in basketball. But if you're trying to do what they did without having the players they had, you are going to be frustrated. So good luck to the 76ers. I was born in Philadelphia. I've always had sort of a soft spot for them. And obviously, I loved watching the 83 76ers finally get over the hump after, Wilt struggled for so hard and so long to try to bring a championship to Philadelphia when he was playing there. And obviously, Philly boy, Overbrook High. We always wanted, to see Wilt thrive and flourish. And of course he did. I mean, he had maybe the greatest career of all time, but didn't have the rings, obviously, because of those freaking Celtics who kept winning and winning and winning. But the short answer to what you're asking is, what else were they going to do? Who else were they going to pay, James?
Well, hey, we've seen teams do worse. Pay players that have some of these contracts that now they're trying to get out of. A good example would be he's back with the Lakers again. Brain fart. But he's a big man back with the Lakers. So I had one of those.
Wait, we're not about Dwight Howard again, are we?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, of course, yeah, of course. Well, first of all, I want to applaud them for embracing sustainable and green management, recycling, reusing. So instead of opening up a whole new can of players, they said, we're going to take this can of players we had before, maybe spritz a little paint on it, buff out some scratches. Boom. It's like new again, right? It's not wasteful. I give them credit for
that. We'll see. When the hubcaps start falling off, and the back bumper, you have to put it back up with duct tape.
Hey, what's Sam Perkins up to?
There you go. Oh my God. Okay. Um, let's see. Oh, Kimber Walker. Kimber Walker.
Sure.
He's a New York boy. Now he's back with the Knicks, or
Yep.
well, he is with the Knicks now. The Celtics decided to move him. Uh, but what do you think about I mean, the Knicks? They're a good story. They were a good story last season, and they'll probably make the playoffs. Especially if there's a play-in, which gives them an even better shot. But what do you think about the move of the Celtics moving Kemba Walker to the Knicks, but then showing their belief in Marcus Smart after that by giving him a bigger contract? Is he one of those glue guys that you talk about so much?
I think he's a little more than that. I mean, to me, a glue guy is like what Tyshawn Prince was when he came to, Golden State. Glue guys are guys that normally are playing slightly above, I mean, they're into the double digits, not way into the double digits in minutes, unless in case of emergency, right? Somebody gets hurt, somebody gets in early foul trouble, and they're good enough. I mean, Iguodala had been a superstar, 25 point a game guy at one point in his career, once again back in Philadelphia. And he even managed to become a glue guy, though he was, once again, in case of emergency, right? If they needed him to go for 20, 25 points, he was fully capable of doing that. Uh, so he's not quite Iguodala, but he's closer to that than he is to a guy like Tyshawn Prince. And Kemba Hudley Walker, right, is a 20-point, 4 rebound, 5 assist guy. But he's a volume shooter, as the saying has become, right? We will talk about Kobe. Well, yeah, but Kobe's a volume shooter. And what they mean is, unlike someone like KD or someone like Steph, who manages to get you a lot of points on a fairly low number of shots, Kim was going to put up a lot of shots to get you those points. And that fits some teams, but not every team. Well, some teams need somebody to take those shots because they have guys that aren't necessarily shooters. Really, the 76ers could have used Kimba, to be perfectly honest. If we're being completely honest, because they need guys who want to shoot. It sounds crazy to say that about basketball, but the 76ers are a team that is, oddly enough, run into a strange problem where they end up having sometimes 2 or 3 guys on the team on the floor at one time in critical situations who have no interest in shooting, which seems strange when you think about basketball and sort of how the sport works, like sort of built around shooting to some extent, especially the way the game's played now. So yeah, I mean, he'll do fine. And New York also has plenty of shots to spare, but I can't help but think of what he could have possibly done for a team like Philadelphia. But yeah, I mean, he's a small guard who thinks about shooting first. So the term combo guard, lead guard, you hear that kind of term bounced around. I mean, he's listed as a point guard, right? And he can make plays. Don't get me wrong. He's a good passer. I'm not saying he's a bad passer. He's a good passer, but he likes shooting a little more than some teams can really abide. So he'll fit in. Like I said, he'll be fine in New York. Plenty of shots to go around.
And one of the glue guy. Well, I think you called him a glue guy last year, but the Greek Freak no longer has PJ Tucker.
Yeah, no, PJ Tucker. That's a glue guy. That's a good example of a glue guy. Because PJ Tucker's idea of an offensive night is 8 points, right? I mean, PJ gets pretty much 100% of his shots on putbacks, right? You don't run a lot of plays for PJ Tucker. And by a lot, I mean none. So he is happy to play defense and rebound. So Anthony Leon, PJ Tucker, gives you rebounding, he gives you defense. He's a powerfully built guy. He's sort of like a more athletic version of Udonis Haslem, I guess you could say. slightly more athletic, slightly more versatile than Udonis Haslam. But at this point in his career, I mean, he's averages 7 points in his career, but the last year he averaged more like 4. He was, putting up about 4 points a game, gives you about 4 rebounds and about 1 assist, but that doesn't really give you a good sense of what he really represents. And he can play a bunch of different positions. He can play power forward, even though he's not very tall. He can play power forward. He can play small forward. He can play shooting guard, though it's shooting guard in quotes. I mean, he's defending guards, I guess, but I think in his most, athletic, heavy career year, I think he managed to get to 9 points a game, a little over 9 points a game. I take it back. He was almost at 9.5. I think he got to 9.4 1 year out in the desert in Phoenix. But with the exception of 2 9-point years or something, he's been a guy who's normally, 6'2", and like I said, down to around 4. But he gives you a bunch of other stuff. He's versatile. He's tough. He's good. He's a good defender. He'll do whatever he's asked. So yes, they'll miss him, but he's not irreplaceable.
Mike, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you? How you doing, Bill?
We're doing good. We're doing good. We were talking a little basketball before Regina gets in, and we talk a little football. But we were talking at that particular point. I had kind of went off script a little bit, but we were talking about the loss of P.J. Tucker and the effect that it might have on Giannis's game. What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are whatever Bill and you think are probably correct. I don't follow basketball at all, like hardly ever. I could probably discuss more about the KD Draymond thing, unless you guys discuss that in detail. But other than that, I'm probably more of a spectator and learner than anything about basketball.
Well, give us your take on the KD Draymond thing. We talked about it a little bit, but it's always nice to have a different opinion.
Yeah, I would like to know exactly why he's blaming the front office in detail, because to me, that sounds like a lame excuse. It's like I thought that the Warriors tried to do everything they probably could do, and why not when you can have multiple rings, and usually rings bring fans, and if you have all the fans, then you have all the money. So to me, to blame the front office is kind of weird, and I didn't hear what he had to say about it or what his reasonings were. So to be fair, I would probably have to know exactly why he would blame the front office. But Draymond Green is always he's always trying to pick the most unusual ways of just getting his point across too. I mean, constantly just saying things that are just sort of like, okay, as a basketball player, stick to basketball. If you want to talk about front office, then retire and join the front office. Then you have every right to talk about the front office. But I don't get it. Draymond Green is always talking stuff that really isn't his lane. He's always jumping lanes, and I don't know. I don't like it too much.
Well, Draymond has been a tough pill to swallow ever since he was in the college ranks. But basically, he was. I'm kind of with you. It was kind of lame in the sense that this was something that happened between two players. It happened on the court, and it was given a lot of publicity. So once Draymond had crossed that line, I don't think it was a matter of the front office, but it does give you a good excuse, when you look back later and say, what if, so yeah, I do kind of go along with your opinion on that. Bill, one more question before we start talking our NFL for tonight, and let me grab it. Let me grab it from over here right quick. Looking at the Christmas Day schedule, And Mike, have you seen the Christmas Day schedule at all? Because well, we already know what games will be, what NFL games will be on. That's kind of a given. Whoever was it, the Lions, and was that Thanksgiving?
That's Thanksgiving, yeah.
Yeah, Thanksgiving.
Lions and Cowboys are always Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, there's somebody that's always Christmas too, right? Or was it the day before?
They did, I think, Christmas last year, and a lot of people didn't like it because Christmas is sort of the basketball thing. So they were like, "Why are you encroaching on something that we have? Like basketball would be on Thanksgiving, So I could understand that angle a little bit too.
Well, maybe we'll talk about that. Bill, what do you think about the absence of Zion and the Pelicans from the Christmas Day schedule? I mean,
I do not care.
Are the Pelicans really that bad, Bill, or do you think that they're just a feel-good story for New Orleans?
It's I don't know if it's that much of a feel-good story for New Orleans. I mean, they do have an interesting player, but the team itself is not all that compelling. Zion is going to have, like I said, a very carefully watched career. He is either the heaviest or second heaviest player in the league. I have to check to see sort of how, depending, what he's weighing and what a couple other guys who are much taller than he is are weighing, from 1 year to the next. But he's in the top 2 all the time, and he's listed at 6'7", but he's, I think, barefooted 6'5" and 7'8". So
6'5.5". Come on, Bill.
Right. So he's almost 6'6", but he's flirted with. He's played in the 280s much of his career, and he can get to 300
easily.
So it'll be an interesting thing to see. First of all, just obviously how good and how long a career he even has, but the team itself. I mean, I don't mind watching them, but I don't think to myself, man, I got to watch the Pelicans. What's Christmas without the Pelicans? The kids be able to work up the gumption to unwrap presents. You don't see the Pelicans. Tell Grandma not to come if the Pelicans aren't on. I mean, when's the last time someone?
It is weird, but you made an interesting point, Mike. As a diehard football fan, and we did have, there were some other contributing factors, of course, COVID-19, shortened schedule, the whole 9 yards. But I sort of enjoyed football on Christmas, and I could care less what the NBA fans thought. It just gives me more of a choice. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Hey, the more sports, the merrier. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, and then like you said, it gives people a choice to do. I mean, you can either watch NBA, you turn on NBA and enjoy NBA, or you can turn on the NFL and watch NFL if you enjoy the NFL. And Merry Christmas. You have two presents to open instead of one.
Yeah, I mean, and who doesn't have picture in picture if you're undecided? I mean,
there you go. That's another thing.
What do you think, Bill? I mean, I don't really think. I mean, the contracts are already in place, so it's not so much about the TV audience, as it is about the owners, I think.
Well, the honor / punishment, when you look at it, of playing on that particular day. Obviously, you're spending less time with your family, which is either an advantage or a disadvantage on how you feel about your family. But they put together, I want to be fair, they put together some compelling matchups. Hawks and Knicks is a really interesting matchup of two young teams on the rise. The Celtics and Bucks were once a tremendous rivalry, right?
Yeah.
late 60s, early 70s to mid 70s. Obviously, it sort of dropped off a little when the Big O retired, Kareem went west, and Bobby Dandridge went to Washington, and then the Bucks were still interesting, but they weren't really a championship contender after that. But now this is a very intriguing matchup. Warriors and Suns. The setting of the Warriors, the rising of the Suns, I guess, to coin a phrase, is going on out west, but still interesting to watch. You get to see who's going to go for 50. Devin Booker, Steph Curry, both. Nets and Lakers is, not a compelling traditional rivalry exactly, but should be interesting. Obviously, the Nets have a lot of really fascinating pieces. Despite the fact that these teams are on opposite ends of the country because of player movement, there's still a lot of familiarity between the two clubs. Former teammates facing each other in that game. And Mavericks and Jazz. Well, once again, if you love European basketball, you're going to love the Mavericks versus the Jazz. A lot of dudes with a lot of hard consonants and such in their names, but terrific players also. That's going to be a well-played game. The Jazz, fully healthy, are an incredibly dangerous team. And, of course, the Mavericks have Luka Doncic. And they need some – we talk about glue guys. They need some more glue. That team doesn't have a great bench yet. So that's, part of what – we'll see if they're able to fix that over the next year or two, because they have a young superstar who's not quite in his prime yet, will soon be in his prime, and they need to find some other people to throw around him. But they're still always, once again, a team you want to watch just to see, is Luka going to go for 45, 11 and 12? Because he's always capable of a night like that.
Yeah, well, it should be very interesting to see what happens here. But I see we now have the crown princess of the NFL and the Ravens. Miss Regina has decided to join us again tonight. So we're going to make the best of it. And Bill, I hope you don't feel double teamed here. But I'm sure you'll handle your own here. So, guys, let's get right to the NFL. You couldn't have timed this any better, Regina. And let's first talk about one of the rules that I find absolutely ridiculous. Of course, once again, I'm old school, so there's a lot of things that I find ridiculous about the game today, especially the way it's played on the back end. But taunting, I don't know a high school football player, a pee-wee football father, any kind of sport where you have two teams and the team with the highest score wins, that you're not going to have some type of taunting. Bill, even in the military, we have, Army against Navy, we have the Air Force against, so, taking taunting out of the game, does it leave you any time for fun, Regina? Back in the day, a guy coming across the middle, if you were a free safety or a cornerback, that was fun. Can't do that anymore. Now they don't even want you to. Oh man, look, you should have caught that pass, man. What happened? But come on, your thoughts.
So this is again the NFL being the no fun league. I absolutely do not like that ruling. I'm like, these are grown men. Like, they're out there getting their heads banged against each other. Basically, the equivalency or the equivalent rather of, getting hit by a car in terms of the force of the brutality of the sport that they play. But we want to concentrate on no taunting, no taunting. Yeah, so I'm really not a fan of that at all. I actually like it. To me, this is akin to when they tried to stop end zone celebrations. Like that was ridiculous. And to me, is nothing wrong with a little taunting. Like these are grown men playing a violent sport. Um, so I personally like things like, especially if you are giving back what someone gave to you. Like for instance, I remember when Tyreek Hill, he did that gesture against, what was that guy on Tampa Bay? The defensive play on Tampa Bay.
It was
And
it was it was the bloodline, right? The Antoine Winfield the second, the junior, and he
right.
just
And so in the
peace.
Super
See you later.
Bowl, right. So in the Super Bowl, when he got him, he gave it back to him. Like
Yes, he
that's
did.
only fair play. Like, and it also brings to mind for me when the Titans decided to step on our logo, pregame in that game last season. Like, why? Why did you even do that? But then when we came back and knocked their behinds out of the playoffs last year, Peters, started it and, they ran behind and we decided to go and celebrate on their logo. And people tried to like take down the Ravens off of that. I'm like, what? We were paying them back. We didn't start this war. So, in terms of taunting, I'm for taunting. When it's something physical, like I can understand maybe the standing over a player when the player's down on the ground and you're standing over them. Okay, I can understand stuff like that, not being allowed. But if you're just doing like hand gestures, I'm not talking about profanity and stuff, but I mean, if you're just doing like bye bye and see you later or you out of here or what you saying, I mean, I want to see that type of competitiveness from the player. So that's a no fun league rule. I'm not a fan of it. And I think they should be able to taunt within reason. And then the fact that they said they're going to be paying extra attention to it. And these guys, they're running on so much adrenaline. And the punishment is stuff like ejection and things like that. Come on. I think the punishment is too steep. And I think they need to concentrate on other things than the players having fun. So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, Bill, when you start talking about officials, shouldn't they be concentrating on other things rather than what a guy is saying or a gesture that he makes? I mean, if you're supposed to be looking out at the safety of the players, uh, isn't that kind of hard to do those two things in a game that's split second decisions and as Regina says, physics, the rules of nature, uh, collisions, the whole 9 yards. There's a lot of things that officials can think can concentrate on rather than who's talking about somebody's mother or Sammy Watkins waving goodbye to somebody because he's got a 10-yard head start on him. Uh, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think the most obvious thing at play here is we talk sometimes about the culture war within America. Well, this is evidence of sort of a culture war, right? The people who decide how football should be played almost always are older and whiter than the people playing the game. And if you were to ask the players, right, the simple poll of the players, how do you guys feel about taunting? I'm gonna throw it out there. I think somewhere between 75 and 80% would be like, yeah, bring it on. They'd probably say, stay away from my mama, stay away from, like, they'd have a list of things that they don't want you to talk about. But other than those sort of third rail kind of things, I think they'd be like, sure, whatever. So, no offense to people who sit on the competition committee, no offense to all those other people who are protecting the shield. It's very clear that they are out of touch, at least out of touch, with what players care about, think about, worry about. they're worried about somebody rolling into their knees, right? They're worried about, CTE. Like the things that players worry about are almost never. Players don't like to be shown up, obviously. No one likes to get embarrassed at their job. And these are very prideful individuals. And yes, somebody every once in a while will, of course, nothing's dumber than a football fight, right? Someone's wearing a helmet and a bunch of pads. I mean, there hasn't been a real football fight, like where someone could actually have done damage to somebody during a football game since, Andre Johnson, Cortland Finnegan, right? I mean, how many years ago was that? So I know they're trying to keep down certain things, but football fights are not football players get hurt, right? Football players get hurt. Serious injuries are almost always in play, and then Orlando Brown Sr., right, of all things, was the weight from the flag, damaged one of his eyes. He ended up losing sight in one of his eyes. That was a fluke. But I mean, oddly enough, more damage has been done to a football player by literally an official's flag than by a football fight in the history of the game.
Well, Mike, put the icing on this cake.
I don't even understand why they needed to extend a taunting rule when there wasn't even really a problem in the first place. But
that's what they're great at. They're great at fixing the problems that don't exist.
Right, exactly. It's like, okay, so now you're going to make more of a problem because there wasn't a problem in the first place. I'm kind of confused by all of that. I think both Bill and Regina nailed it with what they said, and it seems to me that they're causing more problems than what it really is worth. So hopefully I don't know if this is a rule they're just trying out or if this is a permanent rule, but if this is a permanent rule, at least for this year, hopefully you get the year over with and then they realize how dumb it is and they just, dump it the following season.
I'd rather know what is the catch. That would be my concern. Why don't you tell me what's a catch? Rather than tell me who's taunting.
Who's taunting? Yeah, I mean, they go back and forth and try to define and refine that rule as well consistently.
I was going to talk about the Lions, but I'll see if Demetrius comes in. But Regina, you know a little bit. You and I'm sure Bill, Mike, you guys know a little bit about the history of football, so you would know a little bit about Mr. Leonard Thomas. I'm sure Bill could probably go on about a half hour if we let him about who Mr. Leonard Thomas was, but I'll come back to that just to see if I don't want to take that question away from Demetrius. I know he's a Lions.
Yeah, I think that's good.
So let's go down here a little bit further. I'm going to take this question out of the normal line of questioning, only because Regina kind of had a question about who this guy was. And I was thinking, that a couple of years ago, wasn't he the golden child in Buffalo, Mike? Especially Josh Rosen.
Josh Rosen?
Yeah. I remember people picking him up in fantasy football.
So he was the 7th pick of the draft in the first round by the Arizona Cardinals. No, was it the Cardinals? Yes, the Cardinals. Yes. Okay. So I got that right. Thank goodness. He was the 7th pick of overall draft by the Cardinals. And Ryan Fitzpatrick basically outplayed him his rookie year, and he didn't really get much action at all. Then the second year came around, and then Kyler Murray was available with the first pick, and the Cardinals had the first pick. So they were going back and forth on whether Kyler Murray or Josh Rosen, and they decided, okay, well, we're going to trade Josh Rosen away, and Kyler Murray is going to be our first pick. Well, very good decision. As we've seen, that's worked out pretty much so far, especially for fantasy football purposes. NFL-wise, he's got a little ways to go, but fantasy football, he's doing an excellent job. And then they sent him off to Miami and for the second-round pick, and Miami again. Ryan Fitzpatrick was there, and Fitzpatrick again outplayed him. Josh Rosen, I think, got maybe 3 games with Miami, and then they cut him loose. Then he was picked up by the 49ers about midway through the season last year as basically as a depth option because they were injured, had a couple injuries to the quarterback situation with Jimmy Garoppolo. And he carried on, stayed with the team until the first preseason game, and then we saw he did okay. He just doesn't have an arm. I mean, he has probably the weakest arm when he is in the NFL and not a free agent, probably in the NFL. His arm is just – and then he's not very accurate, which is, twice the problem. So they gave him a shot last week in the first preseason game. Did okay, but nothing great. And so they said, well, we don't really need to hang on to this guy. And boom, off he went.
He's kind of like the modern day Ryan Leaf, right? Would you say overall pick number 7?
Yes, I believe he was the 7th pick of the draft. Yeah, I mean, as far as busts go, if you're like the 3rd or 4th quarterback being selected, and anyone really going in the first round is a bust. But here's the tricky part about this whole thing with first round picks. First round picks hit on less than 50%. So less than 50% of these first round picks, even this year or in history, less than half of them will actually become anybody. So it's a very tricky situation for anybody to be successful. I mean, when you have 16 players or less are going to be, successful in this league from being picked in the first round, do you really call someone a bust? Because the odds of them making it is really slim as well. So, but if you want to look at it as someone who should succeed in the NFL and was a first round pick and have those labels, and yeah, absolutely, Josh Rosen is a bust.
Regina, you want to comment, or you want Bill to go first?
No, Bill can go. I actually was wondering, like, which Josh? I'm like, is 59 Joshes in the NFL?
Without a last name, I had to do a search on it myself.
Right. I was like, no takers on Josh. Which Josh? So yeah, no, you guys can go here. You guys can go here and talk about Josh Rosen.
Bill, tell us about the trials of Josh Rosen. I'm going to disagree a little bit with Mike. His arm is, while it's not exactly a cannon, is not. There are many weaker arms in the NFL than his, including guys that managed to have decent careers. But the issue is he's been hopping and not able to establish himself anywhere. No matter how talented you are, if you can never settle in addition to not being able to fully grasp whatever system you're supposed to be running, there's little nuances to the way each player runs their routes. There's little things about how each center gets the ball back to you. And you don't get solidified in any of those things if you're on 2 or 3 different teams per year. So that's the first issue. A lot of the stuff that sort of began to swirl around him, and he's very different from Ryan Leaf in a bunch of ways. Ryan Leaf was an enormous physical talent who just didn't work very hard. And there are people who put sort of a whisper campaign against Josh Rosen. He was back at UCLA. Now, the one thing I will say about Rosen that is my only real criticism, my biggest criticism, not my only one, but my biggest one, is that I don't think he's ever worked as hard in the weight room as he probably could have or should have. His body hasn't changed as much as if you look at pictures of him as a senior in high school and you look at him now, he's put on something like 13 pounds. And to put that in perspective, you do that same thing with someone like Cam Newton. He's put on 27 or,
So he's got a Big Ben complex in the weight room. So what? I mean, what the hell? Hey,
well,
Big Ben's never met a weight that he likes. So
right, but Big Ben was huge. I mean, hence the name Big Ben. Obviously, I would like for him to have worked harder too, but he didn't have. His problem wasn't getting bigger. He was big. The problem I have, like I said, with Rosen is that he's got a body you would expect to see on someone who is going into their junior year of college when he's been in the NFL for almost 4 years, right? So when Joshua Ballinger Lippincott Rosen, who sounds like he should be battling, guys like John Rockefeller and Pierpont Morgan and people like that for control of the railroads. But he is a person who was considered one of the best high school quarterback prospects since people like Peyton Manning. The Chosen Rosen, right, was his nickname. So the other thing that sort of worked against him, sort of like with Tebow, is that there was a lot of hype, more hype than there was talent. Though he is a talent, he would have to have been one of the greats of all time to measure up to the hype. People were, like I said, comparing him to, the greatest, right? So that was the first, is that people's expectations were out of control on him coming out of high school. He was this incredibly hyped high school prospect. Then when you add to that like so many quarterbacks and players in general, he left early when he was not fully finished, not fully developed. And people get mad when you say, hey, not everyone should come out early, but not everyone should. I mean, Mark Sanchez, people thought that Pete Carroll was just being a hater or whatever. He said, no, I love Mark, but he's not ready. He was right. Mark Sanchez wasn't ready to be in the NFL. And Joshua Ballinger Lippincott Rosen wasn't ready to be in the NFL. He needed at least one more year, right, to be developed physically and, frankly, I think emotionally at the collegiate level. So what people underestimate is how difficult it is to walk into an NFL locker room as a 20 or 21-year-old quarterback and tell a bunch of dudes with bills and problems and achy backs that I'm the new sheriff in town, right? People still don't get how hard that is to do. And some people do it and do it brilliantly. But they are the exception, not the rule.
And Josh Rosen definitely was not the rule. Regina, the Saints and the Raiders say that their fans must be vaccinated or have a test, a negative COVID test. What are your thoughts on this, and do you think that more teams will be adopting it?
So, as we know, this is a very, very hot topic. It's a very, very touchy topic. I've had the discussion. We've all had these discussions, I'm sure, about what's going on with the panini, as some people call it, the pandemic. In my clubhouse room, we get into these conversations. So, specifically to the Saints and the Raiders, what I applaud is that they are making some effort to try to protect the public, to protect the fans that are, attending the games. Because as far as I'm concerned, you're definitely taking a risk with this Delta variant, a Lambda variant, and all these other variants out here in whatever Greek letter they may be. To me, you're definitely taking a risk by attending. Even though it's outside for certain stadiums, certain are enclosed, certain ones are enclosed, and others are outside. But the Saints, that one is enclosed, and the Raiders, I think that's one of the new fancy ones, right? Probably does both.
Yes. Yeah.
But you're definitely taking a chance being in a crowd of upwards of 70,000 plus, people with this variant out here. So, but they're paying the money, and certainly the NFL wants to make their money. They don't want to lose the income that they lost last year. So I applaud them in that they're taking some measures to try to protect people if they're willing to spend their money and come and take the risk of being exposed. But I'm just not sure how effective it's going to be in the end ultimately. And I know, again, I read the articles, I know the research, I see the science, but the bottom line is even some people who are fully vaccinated can still contract COVID. Just a good thing for them if they're fully vaccinated is that, they don't get sick at all. So they may be asymptomatic and could be COVID positive, in which case they could possibly be transmitting it, or their symptoms just aren't as severe. And so they don't wind up having to go to the hospital, get on a ventilator. And thank God if the vaccination works for them. However, you still can possibly transmit it. There are, cases where it happens. And I don't know about you guys. Like, I love going to the football games. And the entire time I'm at like a Ravens game, like pretty much my mouth is wide open, screaming the entire time. Like, I'm screaming, I'm booing, I'm hollering, I'm cheering on. Like, it's just, if it was like a cartoon and we can just see literally all the bodily fluids floating around there when we got 70,000, 80,000 screaming fans. Like, it's a lot, y'all. I don't mean to be vocal, but it's a lot. So, but I can understand that they're trying to protect them. In terms of having a negative COVID test, again, it's an attempt, it's a measurement, it's an attempt at trying to help. However, people can not turn up positive for 5 days later, 8 days later. I mean, it's up to 14 days. So, I can understand him wanting to do something to try to protect the people. So I understand that. How effective those measures are going to be, I'm really not sure. Should a fan who is neither vaccinated nor who has had a recent test be allowed to attend the game? I can't say I can't say I know for sure. So I'm just going to say, knowing that something needs to be done, that people can hopefully come there, have a good time, and, not come back home with something they didn't leave out the house with. I'm not going to say anything negative about it. I just know that is not 100% safe, but neither is anything. And, hopefully we make out okay. That's the biggest thing I can say. So I'm not going to be you guys know I'm very vocal about this, but I'm not going to be upset about them requiring, because they're not requiring you have to be vaccinated. You at least show up with, a negative test. But, I've already stated what my concerns are around those. So,
Well, I, for one, will be standing in line September 20th to get my booster shot. So, and hopefully,
are you down for the booster shot already?
If they gave it to me yesterday, I would have been in line. So,
Interesting, because what I've seen from so what have you been hearing? Because what I've seen from physicians and I think even from the CDC, that they're not saying that necessarily right this second that a booster shot is needed yet. So you just want to go ahead and get a jump?
Look, I'm 74 years old. I've had 2 heart attacks. One of them while I was in the VA hospital. Okay, so my goal is to live to be 101.
I understand.
Now, anything that improves those chances,
right?
I'm down with it. Okay.
Because maybe the Steelers will win a Super Bowl again by the time you 101, right?
Hey, either way, the Ravens will not have as many Super Bowl titles as we will.
Come on, man. Come on.
But no, okay. This is something that I talked to my doctor with. I talked, one of the things I do out here is I go around and talk to other vets in the hospital, and some of the ones that are around me, and I think most of us are down with the vaccinations, and getting a booster shot. I get a flu shot every year. I get a shot for shingles every 3 years. I take a doctor. I let a doctor shine a light up my behind every 10 years. So, I mean, this to me is just one more thing. So, if I also attend boxing matches, so I figure if I'm safe enough to attend a boxing match, then I can go outdoors to a football game. But I'm going to make sure that I'm protected. Now, whether or not you're protected, that's on you. That's your freedom of choice. I'm just telling you about mine. But
I feel you, James. I feel you.
Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I sort of agree with both of you. I think that the person If a person doesn't want to get vaccinated, don't get vaccinated. Just
So be it.
Stay the hell away from me and do
Yeah.
what you need to do, to not get me sick. I have both my shots, but I'm still worried about it. I'm always being careful. I'm always like trying to get separation and all those things. I think Regina said it greatly one time in the room where she said everybody has it. Like that's how you view it, and that's how I view it too. Is I don't know you, I don't know what you've done, but I'm going to say that you haven't. I'm just going to try to stay away from you as much as possible. I'm almost 50 years old. Obviously, I'm not in the greatest shape. So, and I'm diabetic. So I have all these things going against me to start with. I don't need to get COVID. I think it's great that these teams are trying to do the best they can do to make money. And I think that's fine. They're a corporation, they're a business. So whatever you need to do to keep it safe, that's fine. That's probably the best thing they can do. But we know that people are manufacturing cards. There's probably already some kind of underground businesses going on where people can buy these things,
It's so ridiculous.
It totally is. And I think at this point, what I'm frustrated about is not so much that teams are doing this. I'm frustrated that we're still talking about this shit. I am. Why in the United States of America do we still have this problem? I know why, but it's ridiculous that we have this whole thing that's just completely politicized. The pandemic is politicized, and that's probably what I'm so frustrated about more than anything. So to me, I'm not going to go to a game. I find going to a restaurant outside is dangerous enough. I'm not going to go around with 70,000 other people standing in line waiting to buy merchandise or anything else, go to the bathroom, whatever it may be. I'm not doing that. So if people want to do that and they feel like that's their great entertainment and they want to risk themselves, I'm not going to stop them. But good luck, So you do what you need to do. You're a free person, but at least try to do as much as you can to not spread this thing. And B, if you choose to get the vaccines, then I'm definitely one of those that says, okay, that's great. That's great news.
Bill, your thoughts on this, on these two teams? Do you think more teams are going to, go this way, or do you think they're going to, every little team is going to be its own little entity here? I muted you. Sorry about that.
Excitement. So let's first begin by saying a lot of this is going to be regional in nature. Some states are going to have mask mandates. Some states are going to have regulations in place about gatherings, large gatherings. So no matter what the team thinks, they're going to have to abide by state law first, right? So the state has certain things in place, and some states are very different from others. We all know that Florida is essentially just sort of seeing if this plays out sort of Darwin style, right? They're going to sort of see who survives, apparently is their approach. But there are other states where they will have pretty tight regulations in place. So that's the first thing. And then some ownerships, groups are going to be more cautious than others. Some of that is mathematical in nature. Some people are going to say we're willing to take this risk based on the numbers we've run, right? They hire smart people, hopefully, to tell them, is it worth it to possibly alienate this group or alienate that group by insisting on this or not insisting on this? And yeah, they're running those numbers. I mean, this is a business, people. For those who had somehow forgotten, this is a business. So
right.
They're first going to do that, to figure out what's good or bad for business. And then last but not least, and none of us know what the future holds, but if we see an incredibly dangerous swell, and if it turns out that if any of the variants that are being discussed do turn out to be airborne in nature, right? And if any of them also turn out to be able to persist on surfaces, which we don't know, right? The science is still looking at these. We know that the first version didn't last very long on surfaces, but we don't know that about all the variants, right? So that the science will have a big part to say about this. What we've learned about what's going to happen in the next few months will have a big part to play about this. So there will be some individual, as you said, it'll vary from place to place. But we have to remember that the states themselves will mandate a lot of this. If you're in a state, California is going to be different from, say, Florida, right? Which might be different from Carolina, which might be different from Massachusetts, which might be different from Pennsylvania. So the states themselves, the governors and their science teams and things like that will say to some of these organizations, here's what you're going to do, or you won't have games, right? So no matter what the owners think, they are in a state. They're not on Fight Island. They're not floating above the Earth's surface. They're stadiums, or stadia, if we're going to be correct, because stadium, is a Latinate singular, so the Latinate plural actually would be stadia.
Love the nerdism, love it.
But for those who studied Latin, shout out to Mr. Principe.
That's correct.
But the fact is that they will have to abide by their state's regulations, and then regulation they can then tweak certain things.
Well, while you're talking about states' regulations, and of course, start with Georgia. Georgia, you already talked about Florida. You can throw Texas in that also. I think I saw last night the governor of Texas has COVID or something like that. But
Yes.
But the Falcons, despite the laws in Georgia or the misgivings in Georgia, whatever you want to call them, they've become the first team to become 100% vaccinated.
Right.
What's your thoughts on that, Regina?
Good for them. I guess just seriously, just good for them. Given the punitive consequences that were passed down by the NFL, a few weeks ago, month ago or so, we all know about those rules. Like, I'm not surprised. I am assuming that we will have a number of the teams that, turns out to be 100% quote unquote compliant, with having the vaccination, because quite frankly, the consequences for if a breakout is traced back to a player or staff who was not vaccinated, it was just seriously punitive. And then we're talking about people's money now, big time. We're talking about the players' money, the staff's money. So, and forfeiting a game, an entire game, like that's huge. That one game could be the difference between winning a division or not, making it into the playoffs or not. So, like, that's huge. So I'm not surprised, and I'm probably thinking there will be some others that follow. I don't know that all 32 will achieve that goal of 100% vaccination, but I expect to see some other teams follow along with that. So all I can say is just, good for them.
Regina, does Lamar Jackson make enough money to cover that bill?
Hey, I don't need to count Lamar Jackson's money, and I don't need to make decisions about Lamar Jackson's health. I don't. So Lamar Jackson is going to make decisions about his own body. I am not going to sit up here and comment and say what that man should do or should not do. I'll take that back. I will. I do say that whatever he does, he just needs to be as safe as possible, keep himself as safe as possible, follow the protocols, to the letter. That much I can say, yes, he should do that. But in terms of a decision to vaccinate or not vaccinate, that is Lamar Jackson's body. That is Lamar Jackson's decision, plain as day.
Do you concur with that, Bill?
Well, here's what I will say. It is amazing what football players will do to be able to go out and play football. They will inject themselves with all kinds of things. They will sit in a tub of ice for hours. Some of them will buy, a special like bariatric chamber and have it set up in their home so they can have pure oxygen pumped in. There's an amazing list of things. Some of them inexpensive, some of them costing tens of thousands of dollars that pro football players will have installed in their homes, will swallow, will inject, will inhale, some of them are, you would think they were themselves some sort of molecular biologist, what some of them are up to in terms of trying to make their bodies last longer and make their bodies, be able to perform at this high level in this incredibly brutal sport. It's so interesting to me that something as simple and easy as a vaccination is where many of them will draw the line, right?
But that's not simple. It's not, the vaccination isn't simple though. So I'm gonna kind of push back against that.
Regina, have you ever left the country?
Yes, of course.
Okay. When you had to have a vaccine in order for you to go into another country that you decided to visit, did you decide for yourself that you either didn't want to go to that country or you did what that country required?
So that's not a situation I've been in. I've been out the country several times, but I've never gone anywhere where it was required for me to get vaccinations, such as, I guess you're talking about Africa and some of these other countries.
No. My significant other right now is in England. She's been there since July 1st. Before she left, she had to have a test. We've both been vaccinated, by the way. Before she left, she had to have a test that cost $125. She had to pay for 2 more tests. One she got when she got to England. She took the test and had to stay in quarantine for 10 days. And the other one she has to take before she comes back. Now, in the meantime, her original flight from England to the United States has been canceled due to the variant outbreak over there. So, if you can force your child to take a smallpox vaccination before they go to school, if you can force them to take these, mumps, measles, whatever that test is, if you can make your children take these, then what is the difference between that and mandating a vaccine? You've mandated these vaccines for your children. So what? You can put your children at risk, but it's not all right for you to put yourself at risk. I don't see that.
So are you asking me, or is this rhetorical?
No, I'm telling you my point, then I'm asking you yours.
Okay, so you are asking me. So in terms of what you said just now, in terms of your question, number one, and again, we're talking about people making choices about their own bodies. As a child, I didn't have a choice. I didn't even know what was going on. You start getting your shots at 3 months old, 6 months old. Like, I'm not a pediatric nurse, so
Right.
I wouldn't remember as a child. But again, you don't have a choice in that. So your parents decided to do that, so you can go to school. So I didn't have a choice about getting measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox vaccination, things like that. As an adult, I've had the hepatitis vaccination, and I had tetanus, but tetanus doesn't really agree with me, so I don't get that anymore. But those were ones that I did make a decision about getting. And actually, as a nurse, there were certain things I had to have in order to work in a hospital, but I had all my shots, and when they took titers of my blood, I was good. So I didn't need to do anything. But again, none of that changes the fact that as an adult now, I get to make a decision about what I want to do about my body. I'm not 3 months old or 6 months old, so I get to weigh the risks, I get to weigh the benefits, I get to do the research, and I get to make a decision. Like, why people have an issue with people being able to decipher and choose for themselves after looking at research, making a decision, figuring out what they want to do, and all of that kind of stuff. Like, to me, it just is what it is. At the end of the day, it's a very complicated, situation. It's very complicated. And does what I do affect others? Absolutely. And that's the crux of this whole thing. Everything that we do affects the other person. It affects the person next to us, on the bus, on the job, at the gym, down at the stadium, or the stadias, as we've learned. Stadia. Thank you for that. Everything that we do, it affects what somebody else does. So it's a very complicated thing. It is.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to say that people have the right and the opportunity to make that decision for themselves and then act accordingly. My personal thing is, whatever you do, then act accordingly. Even if you get the vaccination, we're still in the middle of this pandemic. There is still a variant flying around, and people can still become positive. Some people can. So the things that helped us to bring the numbers down, which was social distancing, excuse me, which was wearing masks, which was washing our hands. We still need to be continuing all these things regardless of what choice you make. So, but to directly answer your question, at the end of the day, I'm still saying Lamar gets to make his decision. I get to make my decision, but I act accordingly. So I'm not a person who's out in the street running around. I still shelter in place. My household still shelters in place. I don't shop in the store. I use Instacart. I use DoorDash. I have people go and pick
Amazon
up
Fresh.
So right. So it's all kinds of things. So so I just want to protect. So I try to act accordingly. And that's all people need to do. Whatever you're going to do, just try to be as safe as you can and try to protect one another as much as we can. And that's all you can really ask someone to do.
Mike, what's your thoughts on this? We've kind of left you there in the background. I mean, like you said, it is a business. Can a business make rules, that in order to protect themselves and basically their property? As Regina said, as a nurse, she had to do certain things in order to qualify for that position. Should we put our professional athletes in the same position?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's. I don't have any qualms of mandating that vaccine for the players. If my businesses relied on my workers to do what they need to do, and then they're not available to me, and I lose money because of it, then there's a problem. So I as an employee in different situations, 100% believe that there should be mandates. And if you don't by that mandate, which is entirely your choice, then there's repercussions for not doing so. So, players getting fined, coaches getting fired. Hey, they chose that road by choosing not to do the vaccine. And by making those choices and allowing those choices, they still have the choice to do what they want to do. And that was a choice they made. You're not going to escape freely by making a choice and not expecting any kind of repercussion from it, and that's fine. The problems that I have are those that think that they can do both, that they can make the decisions that I'm not going to get vaccinated, but then again, I'm not going to care whether I spread this or not, or potentially spread this or not, because then you're not only eating your cake, but you're having your ice cream too, and that's a huge problem. So go ahead and make your decision, but also understand that there's repercussions from those decisions.
All right. Enough about vaccines and stuff. Let's talk some football.
Yay.
Regina, who's been Cleveland?
So let's talk about Ben Cleveland, or as I called him literally from the moment when they drafted him, Big Country. When I saw Ben Cleveland when they drafted him, I was like, wow, that is a big boy there. And I got super excited about that. I love to see big old offensive linemen. I do. I love it. So I did see the article that you referenced from Bleacher Report, and they were calling Ben Cleveland the X Factor. Um, and I read the article, and I'm not sure exactly what they meant by that, but for me, I like the fact that this dude is 6'6 1/4. Don't forget the 1/4, and he's 343 pounds. He is massive. He is country strong. The dude, I literally just fell in love with him just from the package that they showed, on draft night and everything. I was just like, I just immediately fell in love with Ben. Um, well, number one, I'm glad because he did suffer a concussion, but he was back today. So I'm glad that, first of all, that he's good and he's, recovered hopefully 100% from the concussion. So I'm glad he'll be back on the line. They were saying that he would be a shoe-in probably for left tackle, and that would place him right next to the illustrious Ronnie Stanley. And seeing him and Ronnie Stanley on Lamar's left side, I think that really would be a great thing. He'll probably get to play in this game Saturday night coming up against the Panthers. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with that. Let's be honest, our line did not look too hot in that game against the Saints. Y'all, our line did not look good at all. I was very concerned about that. But hopefully, with him being able to jump out there, they'll have more opportunity to mesh. They'll have some tape to watch. Since they were in that game, and I'm just looking for them just to continue to, because I need our O line to be back. Lamar was running for his life, and not just because he wanted to run last season. He was running for his life. Didn't always have time to get the ball out. Sometimes, I'm saying, not every time. And so I really want that line to be back strong. So with Ronnie Stanley coming back, hopefully he gets to be 100%. I don't care if he necessarily gets to play in all the preseason games, as long as he is ready in game one of the regular season. Looking forward to seeing what Ben is going to do on Saturday. I'm hoping he has the stuff to help to hold up that blind side for Lamar. And so, like, I'm a big fan of Ben Cleveland, and maybe the reason why they said the X Factor is because we hadn't seen him. It'll be good to see just another really big presence. When I look at those guys together, like Ben Cleveland, I mean, actually on the depth chart, Makari is actually in front of him right now on the Ravens depth chart. Let me see, is Makari and Powers. So they both played, and we all didn't look so hot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Cleveland. Maybe that'll get switched around in terms of the depth chart once we get started. But I'm hoping, I'm really, really hoping that dude is able to get out there and shine. And that's going to be a big, big plus for the left side of our line. That's going to be a big, big plus for Lamar. And I'm going to be super excited about that. So go Big Country, go Ben.
Mike, what's your favorite team there? I didn't get to see that in your bio there on Clubhouse.
The Colts. I'm a huge Colts fan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. You got a young running back that seems to be on everybody's lips. You want to talk about him?
So Jonathan Taylor, he's, we'll see. It's like one of those things. So it's basically a myriad of different things. If he was a rookie last year out of Wisconsin, and he's a big bowling ball kind of running back, and so last year started off pretty slow for him. He wasn't doing very well. Processing was slow for him, not choosing the correct holes. A lot of people thought he might have some kind of vision problems, harking back to Trent Richardson and how bad he was. And it was like, okay, well, do we have another Trent Richardson? Because, Jonathan Taylor isn't seeing these holes that are right in front of him, and it was a problem. I watched all those games, and I'm just like, okay, you ran left, but if you just chose to run right, there's a huge lane for you. I don't know why you're running left. So a lot of those things could be contributed to the fact that there was no TAs, there was no preseason. A lot of these rookies were just thrusted into action. Jonathan Taylor was one of them. Marlon Mack was the starting running back for the team, and then he tore his Achilles in week 1, so that put him out for the rest of the season. And they just basically said, Jonathan Taylor, it's your ball, go with it. And he didn't really go with it until about week 10 against the Packers. And he didn't even get to start that game. Nyheim Hines started that game. And once Taylor got the ball, though, he never relinquished it and was making the correct decisions, doing the right things, becoming the second round back that they drafted him as to be, and was just excellent. So that's great. He's compiling yards, scoring touchdowns. But then you go and look at the competition, and you look at Houston, and you look at Jacksonville, and you look at the Steelers that were on the other side of their winning, and when they were going downhill. So it's like, okay, so he's doing these great things, but he's not really doing it against great teams and great defenses. But to me, as long as you're consistent, I mean, you could have a good game against anybody, but to have consecutive games and to be consistent, no matter who you're playing, if you're consistently good, you're probably pretty good. So this year they come in, they have a new quarterback, Carson Wentz, and then he goes down with injury and so he's out. So they don't even know who's going to be the starting quarterback. Is it going to be last year's 4th rounder in Jacob Eason, or is it going to be the 7th rounder they drafted this year in Sam Ehlinger? Who knows? It's almost like a Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill situation. They're both pretty identical. Eason is more like Winston, and Ehlinger is much like Taysom Hill. So they don't even know who the quarterback is. So defenses are going to encroach that line. They're going to stack those boxes. They're going to do whatever they need to do to stop the run. Then not only Wentz is out, but then they lose their all-pro guard in Quentin Nelson. And Quentin Nelson has been an all-pro since he came into the league. So 3 years he's in the league, 3 years he's been an all-pro. Easily probably the best guard in football. I mean, you could make debates, you can argue, but when it really comes down to it, Quentin Nelson's probably the best. And you call me a homer, I don't care. I think he's the best. And now Quentin Nelson is injured. And where Jonathan Taylor got his success was behind Quentin Nelson. So that's where we're at. We're at our all-pro guard on the shelf. We're at where Carson Wentz on the shelf, and we have Jonathan Taylor, who we don't know. He could either be great or he could be someone that's going to be really bad and just had a fluke couple 6 games in there.
Phillip Rivers, maybe, or the other guy, or the other guy whose name we shall not mention.
Andrew Luck, yeah, I would love to have Andrew Luck back. Oh my God, I had a complete meltdown when I saw that he retired a couple years ago. I was at a buffet, and I literally just stood in line for like 5 minutes, keeping everybody from moving forward because I just couldn't believe that Andrew Luck retired. I'm like, this can't be true. This can't be true. What is going on here? Yeah,
I love Luck too, man. Everybody loves Andrew.
Oh man, that was so beautiful. That was so brutal. But anyways, so Phillip Rivers is coaching right now, and he's not leaving that. He's coaching his kids, I think, in high school. So yeah, if Carson Wentz is out for the complete season, which it doesn't look like that's going to be the case, then Phillip Rivers is pretty much a non sequitur.
He did say he could be available late in the season.
He did, and if Carson Wentz is out, I really do believe that they'll go and try to get Phillip Rivers and see if Phillip Rivers wants, because that'd be perfect for him too. He misses first 6-7 games of the regular season. I mean, he doesn't need them. He doesn't need to warm up or anything by any means. He's been in the league for 18 years or whatever it's been. But so he's not going to really need to get into any kind of shape. He knows offense already. He could just be definitely a plug and play. And last year he was really good, really good. So yeah, that would be the answer for sure if Carson Wentz is still out.
Bill, we have another disgruntled wide receiver on the Steelers. But James Washington really hasn't shown me that he can catch a pass. I think I dropped as many passes as he did last year.
Well, I mean, James Washington didn't even lead the team in drops. That was Deontay Johnson who led the team in drops.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. As he said, but I think his I don't know who had the most glaring drops, but my my point is here, like these two guys, Mason and Washington, went to school together. They should have had a natural rapport. They should have brought this to the to the team with them. Don's nephew played on the same team with these guys at Oklahoma State, I believe it was.
Yep.
And then not only do I look at him, but I'm looking at this battle between Haskins and
Rudolph.
And Rudolph, and Rudolph looked worse this year than he did last. Even after he started a couple games. Granted, I'm a Steelers fan, so therefore, the report I give is not graded on the curve. It's definitely graded. It has hard grades here. Bill, what's your take on Washington and this battle between Haskins and Rudolph?
Well, when you have a quarterback battle between Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins, it means that something is broken. Something's gone wrong. You do not have a solid backup situation. So what they're sincerely hoping is that one of them will emerge, obviously. I'm not sure I feel great about either of them, to be perfectly honest. And getting back to what I said about Joshua Ballinger, Lippincott, Rosen, it's even truer of young Mr. Dwayne Haskins because he has even less football in him, right? We're talking about somebody who had, I think, 16 starts in his entire collegiate career. So once again, you walk into that NFL locker room and you're walking in there, not someone who's had a long college career. You're talking about someone who's had basically a season and slightly less than a half worth of college starts, walking into an NFL locker room, and in the case of where he started his career, a rather dysfunctional NFL locker room, and being asked to, step into leadership. And frankly, he failed, for lack of a way of putting it. He flat out failed. Then he steps into a better situation in that the culture in the locker room he steps into is a healthier culture. There's more stability. It's a more solid kind of organization. But it's going to take him a while, if he ever gets it, to get it. We already know what Mason Rudolph is. He's not it. He is something other than it. We should have figured this out already. So they still need to address their quarterback position. No matter what happens between those two, they've got wood to chop when it comes to getting the quarterback situation fixed. James Washington is a lot like Chris Chambers, for those who remember him back in his days, physically and even in terms of style of play. He's a guy who's a vertical receiver who isn't a bad route runner, but he's not an exceptional route runner. He can track the ball fairly well. We saw him in his days at Oklahoma State make a lot of plays down the field over each shoulder. So some guys can only track the ball over – there are guys in the Hall of Fame, in fact, who only track the ball over one shoulder, right? But they were so good at tracking the ball over that one shoulder, they still made the Hall of Fame. But show. He could track the ball over either shoulder, which not every receiver can do. He was good after the catch. What he was not fantastic at, because he was never asked to do it, quite frankly, he wasn't asked to go in the slot a lot while he was at Oklahoma State. He pretty much stayed on one side of the offense all the time. There were a lot of what I call binary reads in their offense. Middle field open, middle field closed. And so your route combination changes. Middle field closed. Oh, well, you then okay. This converts to a dig, right? Middle field. So it's very simple. It's a simple offense, right? And he stepped in from that offense to an offense that's far more complex. People underestimate. When I talk about quarterbacks, people underestimate how difficult it is for a lot of these receivers to come from these what I call binary passing offenses, where man zone, man we do this, if it's zone we do that. Once again, you look over to the sidelines, and it's a card. It's got Scott Van Pelt, it's got a Ferrari, it's got a Tiger Cub, and look over here, it's the thimble from the Monopoly board, and that tells you a couple of them are dummies, but the others are the routes, and one of them's protection. Boom. And you go. That's how you can run those fast break offenses. The problem comes when you get to the NFL where they're not doing any of that stuff. Hey, here's your playbook, son. Ba-doonk. We have 111 different passing plays. Good luck. So his problem has been a mental struggle, not a physical struggle. He's probably, physically speaking, our second most gifted receiver, right? But it's been a mental struggle with him. And once again, should he have gotten it by now? Sure. Will he ever get it? Who knows? Should they maybe simplify things for it? I don't know. If he's your fourth receiver or fifth receiver, you probably won't bother because you've got other guys who've figured it out. Might he do better in another? Might he go to Arizona and flourish? Maybe, right? Because Arizona runs an offense that's closer to the offense that he ran in college.
Follow behind Connor, huh?
There you go.
Well, James, let me ask you this. Let me turn the question on you because I actually have asked several Steeler fans when that news dropped, even though I read that Tomlin denied it. That is the case. But when I talked to other Steeler fans, they were like, he can go. We're okay. I'd rather see more of McFarland. So I want to turn that question on you. So how do you feel about it?
I had his bags packed last night. Actually, he's a guy that Mike, you might appreciate this because I was really high on him. As a matter of fact, I had him as my number 2 wide receiver in a couple fantasy leagues. Luckily, I was able to get Claypool also, but it just happened to work out that way. But no, I was very disgruntled with his attitude and the way he played last year when he really had a chance to shine. Like I said, maybe I was expecting too much from that combination since they had played all the way through college together. I was disappointed not only in his route running, but I thought he had a very terrible attitude, even though he was a good citizen, so to speak, but or at least I perceived him as one. But no, I would not be anywhere at all surprised or taken aback if they did trade him. As a matter of fact, I'm just wondering, if he's worth the trade value that we could possibly get for him. What are we going to get? A 5, a 6? We're certainly not going to get any type of upper echelon receiver for him. So, but
so what was he? 3? Was he the wide receiver 3?
He was wide receiver 3, and then he got demoted to 4.
Oh, okay. Because he only had, I went and looked it up. Of course, I didn't know off the top of my head. He only had 56 targets last season. So do you think his complaint is legitimate?
Well, but that's what I'm saying. He only had that many targets, and that was from his boy. So it's not just him. I mean, if they were on the same page, and most of the time they're practicing on the same team. So I thought that there would be that instant rapport between the two of them, and I was kind of disappointed in that. So as I said, I would not be adverse to trading him if we could get someone of equal value.
So you rather see McFarland also?
Yes. I'm at the point where I'd rather see some of the younger players. Even though people talk about Big Ben gives us the best chance to win.
Who says that?
Right now that's with Haskins and Rudolph being the
Your backup
alternatives, being the alternatives. I mean, then right now we have to stick with Big Ben, but I would have either cut him or got rid of his contract last year and bring somebody in for the future. We need to find the next Lamar Jackson or the next
what?
Hey, we do. We can't depend on offense, and the days of the stand-up quarterback are gone. We just can't do that. We have to progress with every other team that's that's winning in the NFL. Other than Tom Brady, everybody else has at least some type of mobile quarterback. So that's my take on it.
So this is the last question for you. So rank the QBs in the AFC North. Where does Big Ben fall?
Number 4. If there was a fifth, he'd be there. But that's my.
I'm just upset that James has killed off Matt Ryan. So I guess Matt Ryan died.
He said if there was a 5,
he'd be there. Wow.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I don't know. Name some backups in the AFC North. He might be number 5. I'm not sure. But anyway,
well, I can tell you one thing. I don't think he can take out Huntley. Huntley has been killing it on our team. One of our backups. I think he's going to be number 2.
From Utah.
Well, then, like I said, then and if I'm correct, wasn't Huntley a backup to Lamar before?
Yeah, he was number 3 last year. But I think he's going to be number 2 this year. Looks like we'll see. Our O-line, we'll see what Trace is actually able to do this weekend. Hopefully, our O-line will be a little tighter. Plus, Trace, we found out his back was hurt. He was dealing with spasms in his back, so it'll be interesting to see. So I think that race continues.
If Huntley is number 2, then definitely Big Ben might be number 5. But that's another discussion. But I'm going to go through some guys here that last year they did extremely well as far as scoring touchdowns. But this year, they may have a problem. Not just because of the teams that they're on, but because of the fact that some of these teams may have changed their scheme. So the first one that I'm going to start with, and we can keep these kind of simple. You can tell me, will they score more or will they score less? And if you want to give a number, you can. So I'm going to start with the Vikings here. A receiver that did well with me in fantasy football. Yeah, I'm a fantasy football player. So, but he did extremely well for me, and that was Mr. Adam Thielman. He scored 14 touchdowns. Bill, more or less this year.
You said for 15 touchdowns?
14. He scored 14 last year. Will he score more or less?
Well, I mean, less simply because that's almost unsustainable. It's difficult to keep that up. Not way less, but yeah, slightly less.
Okay. Regina?
I'm trying to think of what changes the Vikings have made. I mean, definitely their defense is definitely improved, but on offense, I
still
mean,
got- they
Cousins
still got-
is back. I mean,
Yeah,
you
you
got
still
your
got Kirk Cousins.
right. You got
still
your
got Devin
same
Cook.
people. I actually drafted Thielen. I have him on my Scott Fishbowl team and my Clubhouse Champions team. I got him with Kirk Cousins. Got that stat going. So I hope he does. I mean, I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. He can still get to that 14. I hope so, because that would be killer for my fantasy. I think that defense, don't you know how when the other side of the ball, when they do well, it pumps you up to do good too? So I'm gonna say I think that defense is really going to push the Vikings forward, and so that's going to pump up the offense even more. It's a tough division though, but I'm gonna say he can get to that 14. Not gonna say more, but I'm gonna say he can get to that 14.
Mike, I'm saying 12. What are you saying?
I'm saying if he gets more than 8 touchdowns this year, I'll cut my hair into a mullet.
Oh, wait a minute.
You heard it here first.
Wait a minute. That's what I'm getting. I'm getting ready to document
He said
it.
more than 8.
More than 8. If he gets more than 8, it's Regina. It's 7:47 on the 19th of August. Okay, so we will put this down.
Oh, we need to do that live.
Oh, hey, it'll be replayed on YouTube, the Sports Crib, all over. So all you have to do is check us out. Mike is there for posterity. So
I did the same bet for Ezekiel Elliott last year, where I talked about where he would fall as a running back. I said that he would be RB8, and he was an RB9. So I'm feeling good about my predictions. I should probably not risk my hair every single season, but
it's too late now, Mike.
I should have thought of that before I opened my mouth.
Yeah, the mullet part is what that's wow. I'm gonna think that this is Mr. Scott Randall. Hello, Prophet. Who's the Prophet? Prophet 123.
He's trying to come in. He's just not in yet.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait, we have him muted. That's why. Or he's muted himself. Unmute your mic. Prophet, unmute your mic. Okay,
well, you want to go into the next one till he jumps
in? Maybe he just wants to listen. Okay, the next one would be Delvin Cook. Okay, last year he scored 17 touchdowns. Mike, you've already given away your hair. Can we go for the beard?
What else can I give away now? I'm going to stick with 17. I think 17 is a good number. I mean, he might get a little less. I doubt that he'll get more than that, but I think 17 is a solid number for Dalvin Cook.
Maybe we should ask whether or not he's going to be healthy. Bill, what do you think? Bill?
And it appears James decided to mute himself to complete the double play.
Okay,
I can hear James.
I'm not muted.
Yeah.
I'm not muted.
It just keeps getting better.
Can everybody hear me, or is it?
Yep, I can hear you. You wasn't muted.
Oh,
you were not muted, rather.
Maybe it's Bill that's muted himself. But okay, so we'll let him figure that out too. Bill, can you see us? Hey, Bill. Anyway,
okay, so
Gina, what's your thoughts?
What is happening?
I mean, he's Dalvin Cook. I wish I knew how many he had the year prior, but he's Dalvin Cook. Weird. So he's going to get his. So I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it at 17. I'm going to hold steady at 17 again.
Yes, right, exactly.
Okay.
I cannot.
Bill, can you hear us?
That is 100% accurate. I most certainly cannot.
Can you hear us, Bill?
Well, He's trying to guess what's being said, other than trying to get my attention, probably. And they're trying to communicate.
Let's see. Now let's see if we can let him back in now. Maybe that'll work.
I may have the show rundown in my email.
Can you hear us now, Bill?
See if I can guess what we're discussing.
Bill, can you hear us now? I guess not.
Huh. That's interesting.
Bill, can you hear us? Prophet, can you hear us? Prophet 1, 2, 3. Okay.
I can hear you just fine though, James.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. Maybe they can get back in with us.
Bill, can you hear me, Bill? Yeah, it must be something with theirs.
Yeah.
'Cause I can hear you just fine. You never went anywhere.
Okay. The next one, Derrick Henry. He also had 17 touchdowns last year. Regina, more or less.
Oh, okay. So we're probably moving on from various players. Let's see. So
Derrick Henry.
Let's see.
17.
Definitely be less than 20.
They got that whole trinity going on down there with
More like
Julio,
in the
AJ, and Derrick Henry. I don't think he's going to have 2,000 yards this season. I don't think he's going to have 2,000 yards, but can he have 17 touchdowns? I'm going to say under. I'm going to say that there is going to be more passing through the air, not as much on the ground. So I'm going to say under for Derrick Henry.
And 17 is going to spread the ball around more in Kansas City this year. That's my assumption. So he's probably going to check in more like 13-ish, I think.
What do you think?
Dalvin Cook, 17. I'd love for him to get to that, but I just have a feeling he's going to miss a couple games due to injury. So he's probably going to check in closer to 13 or 14. And then Thielman, 14 seems like a tough ask.
He's trying. Mike,
He's trying.
What do you think, Mike?
I'm voiding Derrick Henry altogether this year. He has over 700 touches in the last 2 years. He's 27 years old. He'll be 28 later in the season. 26 is usually the age point where they start to decline. All those hits, and then on top of that, he's the one that's going to keep this offense pretty much afloat. I avoid him.
I'm not sure what's going on there.
Not sure what's happening. Derrick Henry at 17.
Nope.
No way.
No way. Okay, let's see something.
Bill, can you hear us?
Right.
Nope. Okay, still no Bill.
It's like he's in another meta universe or something. An alternate universe, honestly.
I know. And the surprising thing, he's almost catching up with us. I think he was talking about Derrick Henry.
No, he was. He was going through all of the players. Yeah. It's literally like he's in an alternate universe. It's so wild to see it.
Tyreek Hill, Mike. 17.
Tyreek Hill, 17, no way. I love Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek Hill is probably one of the best football players as far as wide receivers go, and he's a very good route runner, and he's pretty much Patrick Mahomes' top option. But 17 touchdowns is so much. That's a lot, and I think the most he's had is 12, if I'm correct. So. Yeah, that extra 5 is probably going to come back down to earth a little bit, and I'd say maybe 12 or 13 for a completely healthy Tyreek Hill, but 17, no.
So this one is hard for me.
Bill, are you back? Can you hear us?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So we got up to Tyreek Hill, 17.
No. Mostly just going to spread the ball around more. I think, he'll still have 12-ish. He'll probably get a couple of rushing touchdowns, so maybe get him to 14. So like 12 receiving, and then a couple of verses. So, yeah, I guess 12 to 14.
Wow. No Sammy Watkins. I think he'll go 18. We'll see.
Well, Sammy Watkins wasn't the issue anyway. I mean, Sammy was a wide receiver 4-ish when he was there. So
Right.
I think the emergence of some of the other younger. I think it's the emergence of the younger receivers. I think younger receivers, and then even Clive Edwards-Helaire, who's a running back but has really, really good receiving skills, will cut a little bit more into his production than. I mean, Sammy wasn't. He would be better if Sammy had stayed, really, because that would have tamped down some of the opportunities for some of the younger receivers.
We'll see. Let's see. We heard you say Thielman 12. I think it was. Dalvin.
Yeah, I think
Cook.
he's checked something there.
Yeah,
well,
Cook.
if Dalvin Cook could somehow stay healthy, he'd have a shot at it. But I just don't. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I think he's going to miss at least 2 games. So
why?
I'm going to say because I've studied these things. I mean, I just don't feel like he's likely to have 17 games healthy. Seems unlikely. 15 almost seems unlikely, but if you can get to 15, I call that a win.
Yeah. He hasn't had, I don't think, has he played a 16-game season? I don't think so. But with the extra game, but
he's never had a 16-game season.
No.
He's had 14 the last 2 years.
Yep,
which is pretty good at a 16. I'll take that.
Yeah.
And then 11 in 2018, and then only 4 in 2017.
Right.
Oh, so question, you guys. I just thought about something. I never read it for myself, but I remember someone saying that. Is this true? I remember someone saying on Clubhouse that the players actually are only playing 16 games.
Well,
not 17 because you're laughing. That wasn't true?
It depends upon the team. Some teams may decide to rest guys or whatever, but if you're only, let's put it this way, teams carry one long snapper. What are they going to do of that game? They aren't playing their long snapper.
Right. So that's true for stuff like that, but I don't know if maybe the right. So that's right. But that's what I heard. I said I never read it, but did you read that?
No.
There are teams that will rest certain players, especially if they're out of it. At some point they realize, just like in a normal season, I mean, it'll just be one season, one game played more. But some teams that have clinched a particular playoff spot will rest a player in weeks.
Right. But that's up to the team. It wasn't a mandate from the NFL, though.
No.
Okay. That just popped back in my head. I didn't read it, but I remember somebody saying that when the rule came out about the 17 games.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, how do you do that?
No, you can't. They didn't expand the rosters to the point that you could suddenly not play. Think of it once again. If you only have, some teams carry 2 or maybe 3 extra offensive linemen. You can't rest all of your offensive linemen. You only have one. Some teams only carry 1 extra linebacker or 2 extra linebackers. Like, it's impossible. It's unworkable. You don't have a roster.
And they're still getting game day paychecks. So that I don't see how that's going to work. But Bill, let's move on to Devontae Adams, 18.
He's the only one I think has a shot. So with the extra game and the fact that still the Packers have not successfully really developed a number 2 receiver, these many years into the so I'm going to roll off some of the names of guys that they thought might be that guy. Hey, Jeff Janis people, remember them? Remember that?
Jeff Janis. I remember Jeff Janis.
Julio Janis, as some people used to call it. Jake Kummerow, right? The blood kid, Jake Kummerow. Of course, obviously the law firm of Marquez, Valdez, and Scantling. Let's see. My friend Geronimo
Allison.
Right.
Never heard that name in a while.
Right. So they've had a bunch of guys they thought might be the other receiver. And thus far, none of them have become that. Now, who knows? This might be the year it happens, and then it cuts into its production, but I'm not betting on it. This is the only one that I think has a legitimate shot to get back to that number. Plus, I know that, once again, last dance style, both he and Aaron Rodgers might be trying to, find their way to greener pastures, but I think they both want to go out on a bang. So I think you're going to see him beating Devontae Adams like nobody's freaking business. So yeah, I think he has a shot to get back to 18.
Regina.
I don't have anything new to add about Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is going to Devontae Adams. So I would say, yeah, literally for everything that Bill just said, I think he has an opportunity. I still think
More
Dalvin
or less.
No, I'm going to say he has an opportunity to get back to that 18. I think he has an opportunity to get back to that 18. I'm still going to say yes on Alvin Kamara too, especially with Michael Thomas not being there, changes in quarterback. They're going to be, yeah. I still think he has a chance just for that.
Yeah, I'm with you on Kamara because he also has good hands. So I'm going to stick with 21. If the Saints score, I think that's going to be primarily their main weapon. Bill?
21's a big ask, man. 21's a big ask. I just don't get back to 21. He might even get to 19. 21 is a big number. I think the offense as a whole will be less productive. And just as a rising tide lifts all the boats, a retreating tide lets all the boats sink lower. I think there, as a whole, it's going to come down a little bit. Good news is that you'll see the deep ball more, but you'll also see more interceptions. Because that just happens. I mean, the harder you throw the ball down the field, the more likely it's going to be intercepted. That doesn't help Kamara because he doesn't run deep routes. So I think he'll touches and he'll get a lot of yards. If it's a PPR league, he's a really good bet to have because he's going to get loads of touchdowns. He's going to get 21 touchdowns. That's a lot of touchdowns. And I just think their offense will be less productive across the board.
Okay, James, are we playing spades? Because I'm about to renege right now. I'm going to renege on Alvin Kamara. And I'm reneging now because I remember it was that one game that he got 6 touchdowns in one game at the end of the season that like won fantasy for some people and killed it for others. I was one of the people who was a victim because the other person I was going head to head with had 6. So that is not a usual thing. He got 6 touchdowns in one game. So that is not likely something that will be repeated. So I'm going to renege. He will not get 21.
Good call.
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm right there with Regina. When you're basically the only weapon on the team, it's good, but it's also bad because guess who you're going to be going to all day long, every single game. Pretty soon, I don't care what kind of shape you are. I don't care how unhuman you are, and Alvin Kamara is probably one of those athletes that is just, if you can be unhuman, Alvin Kamara is probably unhuman. But you're going to break down. And it's just one of those things where I just don't see it. He's not someone who busts for long yardage. He's not someone that is, I think he's had 3 100-yard games in his career. 3 100-yard games. That's it. So he catches a lot of passes. I would assume he would do so. He is going to score some touchdowns. But when you're the only guy getting 21 times in that end zone, I don't see it.
Bill, final thoughts for the evening, my man.
Okay. Well, since we didn't get to talk about him, I will talk a little bit about the late Leonard Thompson. So for those of you who do remember people like Glenn Milburn, teammate of John Elway's coming out of Stanford, or later, a little bit later at least, Eric Metcalf, right, who was a dynamic track and field athlete as well as, I think he won I guess it's still called the Southwest Conference, long jump, and I think he placed in the 100 and 200 meters as well, but won the long jump. A similar athlete. Unfortunately, he played in a time a little bit before we really celebrated and highlighted the space athlete, right? He was still kind of a time of the power back, and he was not that. He didn't have quite the career he probably would have had if he came along now, but he still had a very solid career. Came into the league as a running back, had been a very fine running back in his time at Oklahoma State. Had, I think, been third on the team in rushing in his time at Oklahoma State. Comes to the league, like I said, at a time when people wanted 225 running backs. He was not a 220-pounder at all. But he did pair with Billy Sims. They had a very dynamic sort of Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside kind of duo for a while until Billy Sims, unfortunately, lost what might have been a Hall of Fame career due to injury. But in his career of 175 games with the Lions, he managed to accumulate 277 receptions for 4,682 yards, 35 touchdowns. And as I said previously, he really was born too soon. Nowadays, he would have been used like a guy like Darren Sproles is used, where he would carry the ball some, but he aligned in the slot, maybe not wide sometimes. I mean, no linebacker in the world would want to be trying to, cover him on like an angle route or a circle route or something like that out of the backfield, because he would leave them in his dust. He left us too soon at the age of 69. So rest in peace, Leonard Thompson.
Rest in peace.
Let's go with Mike. Regina, everybody knows you got to give a woman the last word, so you're going to have the last word tonight. Mike, it's on you.
There was a time I can remember all the way back. I'm 50, or close to 50, and
youngster.
I am a little bit compared. Yeah, for sure. But back, I can remember back when I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. My dad brought home a poster of Muhammad Ali, and I think it was the Leon Spinks, and it was this great big poster, and it was talked about how great fighting is, and these two great heavyweights. Of course, Muhammad Ali very well could be the greatest heavyweight of all time, and it
could be.
Well, George Foreman might have to say something about that. So it's ever since then, I've really enjoyed watching, boxing from the beginnings to going through Mike Tyson, which was sort of my era of the 80s, and watching him knock out everybody and just learning about the history of boxing, Rocky Marciano and those fighters. And the sport of boxing was so very important to me. And today we have the sport of boxing's talk about Manny Pacquiao versus Ugas. And I'm like, where the hell did boxing go? Why is Manny Pacquiao and Ugas being even a statement in boxing today? A lot of that, I'm sure, has to do with the UFC and those kind of things, but rest in peace, professional boxing, because if Ugas and Pacquiao is the story, then I have no words.
I guess I'm going to have to bring you to my boxing program too, Mike. But a lot of us are saying the same things. When you have Jake Paul and some of these other guys, making the kind of money that they're making, and you have guys that have been in boxing for 30 years and they're making relatively pennies. But
the boxing would be back if you could get Bud Crawford and Errol Spence in the ring. People would love that.
But that's one fight. That does nothing for the entire sport. That's good for a weekend, but that's like the Cleveland Browns and possibly what you pick them playing in the Super Bowl. Some things just ain't gonna happen. Anyway, Regina. I kicked some dirt on the Browns too. So actually, I've been rather nice. I think I've went most of the preseason without calling them the Cleveland Clowns. So I think I'm doing pretty good. But go ahead, Regina. Your last words for the evening. And
Thank
thank
you.
you
Thank
so
you
much.
once again. Oh, yeah, no problem. It's been a pleasure. Thank you once again for having me. I love being on here with you guys. I love talking trash. I am just so happy that football is back finally. Um, I'm looking forward. I have never been so excited just to watch preseason games. Preseason games. Like in the past, it was like, oh, okay. I just want to make sure we keep on winning because we're pretty undefeated in preseason games. But I mean, I have really been interested this particular season. I don't know what it is, but it's just like give me everything football. I'm excited about where we are. On the one hand, I'm excited about where we are going in the NFL. There's still a lot of other things that need to be addressed now. And I do hope to talk about those things in future podcasts on my podcast, She Talks Football. But I'm very excited about these young quarterbacks, that are in the league now, these rookies. I think it's going to be an exciting year with that. I mean, it just seems like all of the teams most of them have gotten better. Not all, most have gotten better. We have a few stragglers still kind of falling behind, but I think it's really going to be competitive this season. Certain divisions are super competitive. I'm really looking forward to the AFC North showdown. I'm still saying that my Ravens is going to win the division, but it's going to be very, very close. But the last thing I would like to say, and most importantly, I really want everyone to be safe and well. I want these players, their staff, the reporters, the coaches, like everybody and everything associated with it. I'm just hoping that they can be safe and well as everyone else. We're just living in unprecedented times right now, and it's very difficult. And some people fall out on one side, somebody else falls out on the other side. But for me, at the end of the day, we've lost a lot of lives, and I just want everyone to be safe and well, whichever route you're going on. Especially these players are still getting hurt. We heard about Carl Lawson from the Jets, defensive end, out with an Achilles. Those Achilles is really an Achilles to the NFL. I hope it's something they can figure out, so these guys can stop going down with that injury. But I want the players to be safe all the way around and to have a good time, and let's get this party started. I am so excited. So guys, please check me out on She Talks Football on Twitter, and She Loves Football in Clubhouse. And my podcast will soon be editing, y'all. I'm just gonna be honest. Editing is painful. It's painful.
Yes, it did.
So I'm still that there. I have broadcasts, but I'm still working on the editing for those things. So yeah. That's what that is. But definitely come and check us out. But thank you again, James, Bill. Bill Stadia. I learned a new word. I'm so happy. I love that stuff, dude. I'm telling you, Mike, it's always good seeing you. And Prophet.
Mike, give us your social media. We didn't get that before you get out of here.
Just Twitter, RFL Red Zone. That's pretty much me. I used to be on Facebook, but I get on and I scroll and I'm out of there. Facebook to me is just too hostile. So mostly Twitter is RFL Red Zone.
Any fantasy leagues or anything that we should know or possibly starting or got some spots left open or anything?
Well, we in one of the leagues. I don't. Regina, are you in the salary cap league?
No, in the RSO, no, I'm not in that one.
Okay, so there is a salary cap league. If either one of you gentlemen are interested, it's definitely I think Sean is still looking for a spot. So I mean, Regina, if you want to be interested, and I assumed for you that you declined it, but
I did. Sean asked me again. I was like, no, but I do have one. I do. It's funny you brought that up, James. I was going to bring that up. Lineup Showdown. There's a fantasy football league, Lineup Showdown. But this is the way this league works, and we're actually running it out of my clubhouse. It's called She Talks Football Lineup Showdown, actually. And so you can DM me at She Talks Football, Instagram or Twitter if you're interested. The way this league works is we don't need to draft. It's just simply about putting in your lineup every week, and you have access to all the players in the NFL. But the catch is you can only use a player one time. So if you use Patrick Mahomes on game 1, you cannot use Patrick Mahomes for the rest of the regular season. So that's what that is all about. It's called Lineup Showdown. It is a $10 buy-in fee, and 50% of that is going to charity. Most definitely, I am all about donating to charity now for these buy-ins. Ever since Scott Fishbowl, it's had a just a huge effect on me. So if anyone is interested in joining the fantasy, my fantasy football She Talks lineup showdown, just please DM me. And because I'm like, that is so much fun trying to figure out from week to week, who do you want to play? But you know, I might want to save this player for this game. Like, you literally got to look at the entire season and then only play that player one time. So definitely check me out for that.
Yeah.
Well,
One
thank you
last
so much.
thing.
Go ahead,
For those
Bill.
who are wondering, how many running backs have had multiple 21 or more touchdown seasons in their careers in the history of football? It's a list of one, and his name is Priest Holmes.
Priest Holmes. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, Bill always shuts up with those nuggets. So, hey, thank our audience for listening. Thanks everybody for coming. Prophet, maybe next time you want to participate a little bit. That would be fine. We welcome everybody here on the SPORTSKRIB. So, have a great week, and look forward to talking to a lot of you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Take care,
You too.
everyone. Stay
Take
safe
care,
and well.
everyone.
Yep. Good night.